Now, the criteria for what makes a perfect watch collection varies from person to person. You could keep it simple and follow the guidelines set out by John Mayer. Is it shiny and does it say Rolex on the dial? And that's one way to go for sure, but if you're looking to build a comprehensive and eclectic collection of timepieces, then there are many styles, categories and families of watches to consider. And I'll be looking at the most popular kinds of watches to cover all your bases and all your wrists. So here are 10 types of watches every enthusiast should have in their collection. If you're looking to buy, sell or exchange a luxury watch, visit Watchfinder. So the first type of watch you should consider is the humble field watch. The field watch, sometimes known as a trench watch, could be considered the birth of the wristwatch. For men anyway, women had been rocking wristwatches for a while before men realised that a pocket watch was too bulky to take into battle. So the army men of the past required a timepiece that was rugged, reliable and could be read at a quick glance, without the need to fumble around in their pockets. Thus, field watches are lightweight, often with a slightly smaller case and with clear, simple dials, usually consisting of big white numerals on black. Some classic examples of the field watch include the famous Dirty Dozen watches, a set of 12 rare vintage military watches originally commissioned by the British MOD and made by 12 Swiss watchmakers such as Jaeger-LeCoultre, Lange, IWC, Omega and 8 others that collectively showcase that simple field watch aesthetic. These days, most brands have their own interpretation of a field watch. Other prime examples of contemporary field watches include the Timex Expedition and the Hamilton Khaki Field. But if you were looking for a field watch with a fun modern twist, then this Studio Underd0g Field and its eye-catching pink lemonade dial with full lume paint job could be right up your alley, or trench. So the next type of watch you might consider for your collection is a dive watch. Arguably one of the most popular styles of watch. A dive watch is sporty, rugged and of course splash-proof. Dive watches vary in their water resistance from 100 metres to a respectable 300 metre depth rating to serious diving watches, waterproof to thousands of metres with ultra-thick cases, helium escape valves and shark-repelling straps. Maybe not that last one, but they all follow a similar design code that's optimal for underwater usage. Simple, highly legible dials with big chunky hands and markers and lots of lume. They're typically made of hard-wearing, corrosion-resistant materials like steel or titanium with a screw-down crown and a rotating bezel. This kind of construction, while functional, also gives them a style that's very suitable for daily wear. And watches like the Tudor Black Bay, Omega Seamaster and Rolex Submariner are also sporty enough to be worn every day in all situations. Perfect for dipping in the pool on vacation, but classy enough to be dressed up for formal occasions. And that's why a dive watch is perfect for any collection and probably why you have several already. Speaking of formal occasions, next up we have the dress watch. Elegant timepieces designed for those special occasions. Those ritzy, glamorous gatherings that I've heard about. Black tie and a tux, looking scucks. Now, at one time it was frowned upon to wear a watch at such an occasion because it was deemed rude to be seen checking the time. But now, in a post-dry slap from the Fresh Prince world, checking the time at the Oscars is not even a minor offence anymore. Anywho, dress watches. So the oldest and most enduring dress watches still popular to this day include Cartier's Tank from 1919 with its signature rectangular case, the Patek Philippe Calatrava, originally released in 1932, with its purity of design is still one of the main pillars of the brand. And then there's the inimitable Reverso from Jaeger-LeCoultre with its case reversing action created to flip and protect the dial from polo match related impacts. So a dress watch is simple and elegant, like this Réserve de Marche for example, another beauty from Jaeger-LeCoultre. Now, typically a dress watch would display the time only, yet JLC manages to effortlessly display the date, a power reserve and a small seconds, while still retaining a subtle elegance. And an ultra slim profile to allow the watch to slip under the cuff of a formal shirt. It features a beautifully decorated automatic movement and like most other dress watches, it's available in precious metals. It wouldn't look out of place at even the swankiest of soirees, but if precious metals sound a little bit out of your price range, then the Seiko Presage is a great entry point to the dress watch game at just just a few £100s, and it too wouldn't look out of place at even the swankiest of soirees, but don't take my word for it. This is all coming from a guy currently wearing socks and flip-flops and a tracksuit that's got baked bean stains down the front. Next, pilots' watches. Pilots, aviators, the drivers of the sky, Pilots of the Caribbean. Here we have another family of watches born from necessity. The pilot's watch is a timepiece styled to meet the needs of, you guessed it, pilots. The very first of which can be traced all the way back to Cartier, when in 1904, Louis Cartier created a watch specifically for his pilot friend, Brazilian aviator Alberto Santos Dumont. These days, pilots' watches are designed around pure function, made from robust high-quality materials and with sparse, clearly laid out dials, reminiscent of cockpit instruments. With the most iconic pilot's watch of them all being the Big Pilot from IWC. This is the epitome of a pilot's watch. The standout features of the Big Pilot are its large case and dial with large white numerals on a dark background for increased legibility, and an oversized knurled crown which allows the user to easily wind and set the watch even with flying gloves on. The watch shown here is the IWC Big Pilot's Watch 43, a smaller, more accessible Big Pilot watch that is 3mm smaller than the regular 46mm Big Pilot, yet still retains all those characteristics that made the Big Pilot what it is. So if you want a watch that's pure and simple and instantly recognisable, then you can't go wrong. The racing watch is the cornerstone of any watch collection, and luxury watches and fast cars go together like Sharky and George. They have a lot in common. They both run on finely tuned engines, and they both make you die a little bit inside when they get a tiny scratch. So watches originally found their way to the racetrack from a need to precisely time races, record lap times and measure speed. But with all that stuff now being done by evil computers probably, racing watches have become more about honouring the original purpose of those racing timers, while capturing the visual tone of high-octane racing and the spirit of competitive motorsports. And as such, almost all racing watches will feature a chronograph function with high-contrast subdials, a tachymeter scale, a register usually found on the bezel for measuring speed. And you might also find other racing design cues like go faster stripes on the dial or perforated leather straps reminiscent of driving gloves. Some of the most iconic racing watches include the Tag Heuer Monaco, the Mille Miglia from Chopard, and of course there's the immensely popular Cosmograph Daytona from Rolex. Or there's this, the Speedmaster Racing, which is a little bit of a hidden gem from Omega, and given its styling could be a great alternative to the Daytona. Now, another popular type of watch you should consider for your collection is the GMT watch. A GMT watch is a timepiece that allows the wearer to tell the time in 2 time zones at once, with the aid of a GMT hand, which is essentially a second hour hand that can be set independently and read via a 24-hour scale on a rotating bezel. GMT stands for Give Me Time and refers to the famous uttering of a genie heard by Rolex creator Hans Wilsdorf, which led him to found the brand in 1905. More accurately, it means Greenwich Mean Time and refers to the local time at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, London, where the sun crosses the Greenwich Meridian. Originally favoured by pilots for the dual time zone function, GMT watches today still make for the perfect travel companion for jet setters, as tracking multiple time zones at a glance has its obvious benefits, like not accidentally calling your business associates at 2 AM in Tokyo, or not accidentally calling your wife at 2 AM from Tokyo. Now, the obvious choice for a GMT watch is arguably, again, the Rolex GMT Master, with it being one of the most iconic GMT watches ever around. But here we have the Grand Seiko GMT SBGE001J, with its incredible finishing and mesmerising spring drive movement and all the GMTsy features you'd need, and all for around half the price of the GMT Master at retail. Now, if you're looking for something that brings some serious visual impact to your watch collection, then consider a skeleton watch. No, not that. I'm talking about skeletonization, the design style that pulls back the curtain and lets you see what makes a watch tick. Skeletonization is the hallmark of true watchmaking, with the process requiring plates, bridges and dial surfaces to be carefully carved away, exposing the intricacies of the mechanical movement inside, as well as allowing you to admire all the meticulous detail and craftsmanship that goes into building a watch. Skeleton watches offer you a mesmerising insight into a watch's complexity. You can observe the transfer of energy around the watch, from the barrel to the balance and escapement, through the series of gears, all the way to the hands, and marvel at the wonder that we call time. That's right. Now this is the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Skeleton Power Reserve. Not only does it feature an impeccably skeletonized movement, with every surface featuring graining, polishing and beveling of an extremely high standard, but it's also extra thin at just 5.37mm thick. So if you want a watch that's striking and a technical marvel, then a skeletonized watch is a must for any collection. So, like we saw with the racing watch, the chronograph, a function for measuring elapsed time, can be a cool addition. However, this time we're ditching the racing aesthetic and the automatic winding in order to appreciate the chronograph movement in its entirety with a classic hand-wound chronograph watch. Chronograph mechanisms are deceptively complex, requiring hundreds of additional components, and with a hand-wound chronograph, that complexity is right there on display, with no obstruction from a pesky automatic winding rotor. Again, chronograph watches afford you that view of the magic that is mechanical watchmaking, with the satisfying clunk of the chronograph column wheel and the gently rotating gears. It's a visual feast for your eyeball skins. Watches like the Patek Philippe 5170J are considered to be some of the best hand-wound chronographs around, and offer some of the best views. But if you're looking to gaze lovingly at a chronograph's intricacy but you don't have untold assets to splash on Pateks, then there's always the Omega Caliber 3861 Moonwatch at just over £5,000 pre-owned. A strong choice and a beautiful movement. Or why not check out Studio Underd0g's 01 series chronograph for just £500. A very handsome chronograph for the money. Now, skeleton watches and hand-wound chronographs are great and all, but the crown jewel of any watch collection has to be a tourbillon watch. The tourbillon mechanism is synonymous with high-end watchmaking and a crowning achievement for both watchmakers and watch collectors alike. The tourbillon takes the beating heart of the watch, the escapement, and perpetually spins it in a very pleasing, almost hypnotic fashion. Originally developed for pocket watches, where typically the escapement would be sat upright in a pocket for an extended duration, the continuous reorienting of the escapement reduces the negative effects of gravity on the balance spring in order to maintain accurate timekeeping. In a wristwatch, however, those effects are negligible, as the escapement changes its orientation naturally on your wrist anyway, making the tourbillon somewhat redundant. But that just makes it cooler, because it's just complication for the sake of complication, which is pretty much what luxury watchmaking is all about. The tourbillon movement is captivating to the point of distraction and a showpiece of the watchmaking craft. As such, high-end watchmaking usually has a high-end price tag to match, but there are some more affordable options out there, like this Chinese tourbillon from Söhne, which you can buy for around £500. Now, our final watch that every enthusiast should consider: something vintage. The vintage style offers something unique: the character of age, its own personal history, each scratch and dent a testament to its use and wear. Oh, what stories they might tell. It got that scratch there while racing in Le Mans. That mark was made while boating on Lake Como. That dent there is where Paul Newman bashed it on a toilet door in a diner in downtown Hollywood. But all these dings are just physical documentation of the build quality and resilience of a good wristwatch. And with proper care and regular servicing, there's plenty more adventures to be had. But you don't have to have anything as extravagant as this Paul Newman Daytona here, as there are many characterful Omega watches from the 70s available for a few £100s. So there we go. Those were 10 watches every enthusiast should have in their collection. What do you think of my choices? Would you add these watches to your collection, or are there any must-have watches that I've forgotten about? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like to support the channel, please visit Watchfinder at the link in our description. Goodbye.